I dislike calls during the late hours. Ordinary individuals don't disturb me that late, unless, of course, something extraordinary has occurred. That's why I always dread nighttime calls and anticipate unfavorable news. I was already dozing off when the tune of my spouse's cell phone disrupted the bedroom silence. My spouse sighed and answered the phone. "It's an unfamiliar number," he said, glancing at me over his shoulder. "Silence it. Whoever requires it will call back in the morning." I mumbled and hid under the covers. The phone kept ringing persistently. I sighed and uncovered the blanket. "Please answer it," I inquired, realizing that I wouldn't be able to fall asleep. My husband listened to someone for a long time, then said he was departing in the morning. "What?" I asked, finally awakening. "Where are you going?" "Jenka passed away. Cardiac arrest." His spouse phoned and requested me to come by. "I'll take a day off work tomorrow and go." "Ah, Jenka, Shenka. It's not yet 40. Stas got up and headed to the kitchen. Early in the morning, I bid farewell to my husband, taking along a spare shirt and a razor. Since I didn't know Shenka well, I didn't accompany my husband. I had coffee, contemplating where to begin my day, tidying up the apartment or washing the curtains. As it's known, women don't have weekends. I decided not to cook. 3 days without food will do me good. At least I'll fry some eggs. And once my husband comes back, I'll prepare something delicious. But my aspirations were not meant to materialize. Just as I managed to freshen up, the doorbell rang. Assuming it was the neighbor dropping by, I bravely opened the door. On the doorstep stood my mother-in-law, and behind her back appeared her second husband, Semyon. "You seem displeased," I observed. "We were in the vicinity, so we thought we'd drop by. However, if you're occupied," I quickly entered a lengthy explanation that it was a gift my grandmother gave me 2 months ago, a pastry. I hurried to the kitchen and extracted the browned pastry out of the oven. Thank goodness I made it in time. I flipped the meat over, covered the pan, and initiated the salad. When the meat was prepared, I arranged the table with ceremonial plates and invited the visitors. "We didn't come to dine, we just came to visit you," said Maria Vasilievna, settling down at the table. Her scrutinizing stare darted from the plate of meat to the salad dish, then to the tempting pastry and back to the meat. Semyon grabbed a fork and lifted a toasted slice. I placed the knives beside the forks as well, but Semyon was an uncomplicated man unfamiliar with the rules of manners. He took a bite of the meat and closed his eyes with satisfaction. My spirit rejoiced, ready to soar with delight that my efforts were not in vain. My mother-in-law's cold and awakening voice brought me back to reality. "How could you, Syoma? It's Lent." Semyon choked and wrinkled his nose, as though he had a noxious toad in his mouth instead of a tender piece of meat. I stood frozen with fear, worried he might choke under my wife's judgmental gaze or spit it out, but Semyon chewed and swallowed the meat. I was horrified by my grave error. I had completely forgotten about the ongoing fast. How could I have been so careless? Gathering my composure, I prepared to face the consequences with dignity. With an apologetic appearance, I initiated the clarification that Stas, my beloved spouse, her mother-in-law, her sole child, admires the meat I prepared, so there is always sirloin in the fridge. However, the store close to our residence only sells pollock. I cannot serve pollock and haddock to my cherished visitors. If you had given me prior notice, I would have had the opportunity to purchase fish at the company store, I grumbled. In the meantime, Semyon was completing the meat, searching for a fresh portion. "May I serve you a salad?" I inquired Maria Vasilievna with a pleasant grin, attempting to rectify my blunder. I commended myself for realizing not to dress the salad with mayonnaise. My mother-in-law wouldn't consume it. Maria Vasilievna kindly permitted me to place a spoonful of salad on my plate. She lifted a cucumber slice with her fork and meticulously put it into her mouth. Yes, ingested it. I cried out, commending myself for recalling to include lemon juice to the salad. Presently, my husband's mom would have no reason to reprimand me that in all the years we'd been united in matrimony, I'd never acquired how to construct a salad accurately. Oh my goodness! She was silent, encouraged by his spouse's silence. Semyon extended his hand with a fork to the next piece of meat, but was halted by her contemptuous gaze and a piercing shout. Semyon laid his fork down on the table, unable to take his eyes off the desired meat. I felt remorseful for him. My husband's father could not tolerate the firm nature of his wife and ran away from her when Stas was 8 years old. A few years ago, at a friend's celebration, Maria Vasilievna encountered Semyon, her first love, who by then had become a widower, and married him. I rose from the table and placed the teapot on the stove, sliced the wonderfully puffed pie. Afterward, I arranged the most beautiful cups on the table, my mom's present to me and Stas for our wedding. I served the loveliest piece to Maria Vasilievna. Previously, I overlooked adding cinnamon to the pie, recall? Give it a try now. You'll surely detect the difference. I deceitfully lied with a pleasant smile. Last time, my mother-in-law persuaded me that I should have added more cinnamon. Really? Maria Vasilievna inquired, gazing up at me with astonished eyes. Semyon, noticing his wife was preoccupied, promptly seized a chunk of meat and started consuming it rapidly, hardly chewing. The kettle whistled, and I poured potent, freshly steeped tea into the cups. My mother-in-law gave me a deadly glare. Is it too hot? Should I dilute it? I quickly reached for a carafe of cold boiled water. Ebony tea is detrimental to your well-being. Aren't you aware of that? She uttered impatiently, gazing at me as if I were an illogical fool. During Lent, I asked innocently. She gave me a frigid glare. Semyon brought a forkful of meat to his mouth, but his mother-in-law intercepted his hand. Enough, Semyon. You already have high cholesterol. Give him some pie. I hope it won't give him heartburn, Maria grumbled. Semyon looked longingly at the meat. I put a platter with a respectable piece of pie in front of him. Maria Vasilievna, I'll prepare green tea now, I said, jumped up from my chair like a released spring, went to the cupboard, and took out a package of green tea bags. Are you going to poison me? You can't drink tea bags. It's all plastic, she grimaced. Sit down. Don't worry, 1 cup of ebony tea won't kill me, I hope. My mother-in-law sipped from the cup and didn't even flinch, to my sincere surprise. She and Semyon consumed tea, while I remained there, hesitant to relocate and commit some error once more. Eventually, Maria Vasilievna put aside her vacant cup. Her cheeks were pink, and her mood had evidently improved. Where is Stasek? She inquired with a benevolent glance at me. He should have been home long ago. Why she referred to a grown man with a diminutive name was always a mystery to me. Stas despised it, incidentally. If you observed, she never addressed me by any name. Didn't I inform you? He went to a funeral. A friend of his from college had passed away. The widow called last night and asked him to come over. Stas will be back the day after tomorrow. Yes, so I missed it. It's a pity, the mother-in-law said, her lips pressed together. I couldn't determine whether she was regretful that she hadn't seen her son at home or that his friend had died in such an unfortunate manner. We discussed our respective matters. Well, let's not distract you from your business. Semyon, we have to go, said the mother-in-law without moving. Distract me from my work. I'd rather tidy up the windows, floors in the flat, and the stairs in the entrance hall than rush around the apartment trying to please, and she didn't even notice it. Oh, come on, what's going on? I'm always happy to see you, Maria Vasilievna, I crooned in a raspy voice, relieved that the reality show's surprise visit from the mother-in-law had come to a close. Maria Vasilievna stood up from the table and glanced at her husband. I thought she was about to order, to the foot, but one look was enough for Semyon. When Stasek returns, inform him that we dropped by. The mother-in-law looked at the table with almost untouched food. Mashenka, Semyon called out from the hallway, holding her coat ready. Maria Vasilievna, took a long time to dress, and then we bid farewell at the door. And yet you shouldn't cook meat during Lent. Maria Vasilievna put a firm end to her visit. I had never previously observed in her a proclivity to devoutness. We kissed the atmosphere near each other's ears. Simeon and I swapped perceptive glances. I shut the door, returned to the room, and sank down on the new couch. If you wish to make the Almighty chuckle, inform him about your intentions, as they say. Then she cleared the table, sighed over the meat, and regretted that Stas was not home, washed the dishes, and commenced cleaning the apartment. Until the subsequent visit of the mother-in-law, we can reside in tranquility. 2 days later, Stas returned from the burial. I missed him so much. You don't appear well. A lot of work? He inquired, narrating to me about the funeral. Yes, I confess truthfully. Your mom arrived and regretted not having seen you. And how did it go? My spouse asked, as if he were conversing about the Queen of England, not his own mother. It was fine. We departed content with each other, I said with a completely innocent smile. My partner gazed at me with disbelief. Actually, I felt regretful that he hadn't witnessed the show. However, my mother was my mother, and I never expressed dissatisfaction with her, understanding that I had an exceptional partner, which was her accomplishment. And she believed I was unworthy of her son, so there was some truth in that as well. We'd been wedded for 6 years, and still, there were no children. For dinner, we had meat and spuds. Strangely enough, it was more enjoyable and more tender the previous time. Then we drank potent, ebony, unhealthy tea. Did you also nourish your mom meat? Did she? Did she consume it? Stas inquired. No, certainly not, I sighed. But Simeon had a great time. My partner reclined in his seat and laughed cheerfully. The amount of affection I feel for him is immense. That's the person who comprehends me, so it's him. In the interest of him, I am even prepared to tolerate his mother every weekend. Overall, I was appreciative of her for her son, and pardoned her aversion toward me. I'm not a present either, to be honest. The crucial thing was that there was harmony and comprehension between me and Stas.